Hi, thanks for tuning in to the James Madison University Master in Political Science live virtual info session. We're here today to discuss some of the most common questions that we have from potential students about this one-year master's program based in Florence, Italy. I'd like to go ahead and introduce our speakers today. The first is Dr. John Scherpereel, who is joining us from JMU's home campus in Harrisonburg, Virginia. He is an associate professor of political science and the director of the European Union Policy Studies master's degree program.
Hi, Christina, and hi, everyone. It's nice to be here.
Joining him will also be Caterina Paolucci, who is live from Florence. She is the associate director and EUPS program coordinator for our JMU programs.
Hi everybody, hi from Florence.
And I'm Christina Craver. I am an EUPS alumna from the class of 2012. I'll be here to moderate today's info session. While we're going to try and answer most of the frequently asked questions that we have, if you have any further questions, we have a pretty in-depth Q&A section on our website as well as in-depth information. You can go to www.jmu.edu/EU Policy Studies for more information. And also follow us for the most up-to-date information on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All right, to get us started, I'm going to hand the first question to John. A question that we get from many students is, why get a degree in political science? Why get a master's? And more specifically, why do so in Europe?
Yeah, I know, Christina, that there are some grad school calculators out there online, and both the administrators of those sites and I myself would note that the methods of those are far from perfect and that their data are sometimes based on small samples. So you should take those calculators with a grain of salt. And yet, I think those calculators consistently suggest that young professionals coming out with a master's degree in political science do better in terms of job placement, in terms of job satisfaction, in terms of salary, than young professionals coming out with a BA degree. As a professor, I also see some anecdotal support for this. Many BA students and MA students have similar career goals. They want to work as foreign service officers or policy analysts. They want to work in international business or non-governmental organizations or for the federal or central government of their countries. They want to work for think tanks. Often BA students and MA students are in the same candidate pool for those kinds of jobs. And one easy way for the busy professionals on the other side of the hiring process to narrow down the stack of papers in front of them is to put those with higher degrees on top. Why? Because those people generally have more analytical skills, they have stronger, more tested communication skills, and because they're able to contribute more off the bat once they join the organization. Now to the second question, why do an MA degree with an American university in Europe? Why do it with an American university? Many of our students come to the United States to work upon graduation from the program, and the majority of those students work in the DC metro area. JMU is obviously an accredited American university with quite a strong formal and informal network in Washington, in and around Washington. So there are some world-class universities in Europe, definitely, but they tend not to have particularly strong presences in the American capital, and rightly or wrongly, they lack some of the recognition that universities close to Washington have. So on top of that, there are very clear benefits of studying the European Union and the transatlantic relationship on the ground in Europe, and specifically in Florence. You are studying with, by and large, European professors. You are studying what is the world's most ambitious experiment in governance beyond the nation state. You are studying the most important, I think, bilateral regional relationship in the world. The United States and the European Union are time-tested partners with an extremely deep economic, political, security, and cultural relationship. So to be able to deepen your policy analysis skills, deepen your cross-cultural communication skills, and bring those skills to an employer in the government or in the private sector or in the non-governmental sector, those are terrific building blocks for young professionals that the program can provide.
I think that's a great explanation for why do a master's abroad, in particular in political science. The next question, logically, that we get from students is, okay, we've seen that the program is a one-year master's. Can it be done? Is it possible to take a course that might be 2 years or more in any other university and do it in 1 year? Caterina, I'd like to ask you to answer that question if possible.
Sure, Christina, with pleasure. The master's program is definitely intense. It's a one-year master's program, as you said, and therefore requires from the students a very, very strong engagement. We have 4 classes in the full term, plus a full immersion in the Italian language additionally. So students take classes for 4 days every week, plus twice a week their Italian course. In the fall term, students receive courses that allow them to explore the fundamentals of the EU. So there is a course on the institutions of the EU, a course that compares the member states of the EU, a course on the transatlantic relationship, which John mentioned before as one of the most relevant global relationships today, and a class in policymaking, which explores the ways in which the European policies emerge. So this is a quite intensive and dense first term. In addition to the classes, students meet with academics, professionals that we invite to give guest lectures in Palazzo Capponi, or often also attend conferences at the EUI, the European University Institute, or the University of Florence, with whom we have agreements and with whom we collaborate on a permanent basis. So yes, the first semester is very intense. The second as well still requires a lot of study, a lot of reading, but also, let's say, a more specific focus. In the second term, students choose a specialized track of EU policymaking that they will concentrate on. So in addition to a policy analysis seminar, they will focus more on the policies that they have chosen, which will either be foreign, security, defense, and justice and home affairs policies, or economic, monetary, common market, and trade and social policy on the other hand. So students will work specifically on these topics and write 2 term papers, one of which they will then present in a high-level academic symposium, which will be held together with the European University Institute in Fiesole, where the institute is located. So this second term is very rewarding for the students, because after having acquired the basis, they are now able to focus more professionally, more specifically, and also in a more career-oriented way on the policies of the EU. In the third term, finally, students will take 2 classes, one of which is the institutional, if you want, instrument for the completion of a full-time internship here in Florence, or of a research project, which will lead to a final thesis. So The year is definitely intense, but a one-year master's allows you to enter the job market much earlier than others who do a two-year master's program, and additionally, we should, also mention probably that it allows you to save quite a lot of money. So whether this is feasible or not, I think it is, but it requires engagement and motivation, and also the idea that you are working because you are preparing your future meaningful, professional, international career. I guess, Christina, that maybe on the basis of your experience, you would like to add something on that.
Exactly. I was just going to say the thing that I answer to students that ask me this is I'm living proof that it can be done in a year and be done well. I think that it's important to note that the program is really a 365-degree program. That includes readings, research, exams, travel, both academic and personal, as well as simply exploring the fact that you live in a wonderful city like Florence. So it also gives you the skill of learning how to balance work, life, studies, everything, which is a skill that everybody can use, frankly. Going back to a point you had talked about, Caterina, before, about Italian courses. A lot of students perhaps are apprehensive if they've taken some Italian courses or have never taken it before. How are they going to fare a year abroad in a city where English is not the native language?
Well, Christina, as you very well know, Italian is an opportunity rather than sort of a weight that students have to carry. We provide the possibility to students to improve their Italian if they have already studied it, or to start studying the language as beginners. And I'm always very struck by the fact that students most of the time are able to improve their Italian, are able to become quite fluent and truly immerse themselves in the Italian way of life. This also allows them to become real participants in the European experiment, in this sharing of languages, in this sharing of cultures. So certainly the fact of studying a foreign language in the country where the language is spoken is an advantage, and can provide the students with an additional tool that they can use also later on if they go back to the United States on their resume to prove that they speak another language. So generally speaking, I have to say the experience of Italian is extremely positive. We offer internships in the final term, in the summer term, and for those students that are fluent in Italian, the opportunities are infinite. So it is also a way, to be able to complete the program with a meaningful experience while working for an NGO or a political party or a public office or a business here in Florence, and this is something that we certainly try to stimulate in the students.
Thank you for that. I think it's also important to note that while the courses are in English, there is the additional supplemental Italian, so that students, no matter what their level, when they come into the program, whether they've done it before or they're starting with nothing, have the support that they need in order to get around and also eventually work in the language if that's their goal. Talking to John now, lots of students are interested in knowing what their classmates are going to be like, or what a successful student in the program is like. Is there a typical student that applies for and completes the EUPS, the European Union Policy Studies program with JMU?
Yeah, there are, I would say, trends, Christina. There are people, obviously, who come with different backgrounds and different kinds of undergraduate preparation, different kinds of pre-master's study professional experience. But in terms of just some general trends, I would say the modal EUPS student comes in with some background in the social sciences. Political science, international studies or international affairs, economics, sociology, or some kind of related discipline. Again, you don't have to come in with those, and we've had students who have come in and done quite well in the program without that background, and yet the modal student, I would say, comes in with something like that background. Many of our students have studied abroad and or in Europe as undergraduates. Again, that is not a requirement, but it's just something that, that our students have done in some frequency in the past. The average student coming in is about 23 or 23 and a half years old. Usually, I would say most of our students come directly after finishing their bachelor's degrees, but a not insignificant number has worked for some time after graduation and comes back in their later 20s or sometimes early 30s. Most of our students, again, but certainly not all, are American citizens. They have undergraduate degrees from all over. Quite a few come from the Mid-Atlantic region, but also there are quite a few from more far afield in the United States. So lots of Virginia public institutions, bachelor's degrees from JMU itself, from the University of Virginia, from William and Mary, from Virginia Tech, from George Mason, Old Dominion, Virginia Commonwealth, but also public universities elsewhere in the United States, from University of Pittsburgh, Ohio State, UNC Chapel Hill, SUNY schools, to name just a few. And then, of course, places further afield, both public and private universities all throughout the U.S. Universities of Texas, Texas A&M, Arizona, Colorado, UCLA, private colleges and universities from East Coast, West Coast, and everywhere in between. Bucknell, Christina, you yourself came from USC, if memory serves, and many others. So we have lots of American students, but not exclusively American students, people who have a real strong interest in Europe and in the transatlantic relationship. That's the biggest common denominator.
Well, I'd like to get to the application questions now, sort of more of the practical questions. I'll go back to John in just a minute. Caterina, if you can, you'd mentioned previously the savings that you get with a master's degree in 1 year. Can you speak a little bit more to the cost of the program itself? Because that really is a question that students, and I know very well their families have before embarking on this journey. What are the costs and what is included in what we're paying?
Yes, sure, Christina. Of course, this is a very important question. And for sure, earning a master's degree in 1 year makes sense from a financial perspective. It allows you to save quite a lot of money. What does our program tuition include? Well, tuition, of course, but also accommodation. So our students are basically allocated to different apartments in central Florence, which are included in the final price of the program. Apartments are all very nice. They're all walking distance from the Palazzo in central Florence. And therefore, you know, living abroad for 1 year could be extremely expensive if you had to pay for an apartment in addition to tuition. In our case, you don't have to do that. We also offer, of course, on-site support. We have offices with personnel that can assist the students with all the issues, all the questions that they might have, from medical to academic to travel, etc. So students will be supported constantly while they're here. Of course, students often rely on loans for paying for some or all the costs of attending a master's program. And in this respect, JMU's Office of Financial Aid will help the students, will follow them throughout the whole procedure. There are, of course, also possibilities of financing outside of the university, and that's something that can be further explored. Another thing that we have been offering in the past 2 years, and that we will continue to offer, are assistantships. Assistantships that allow the students to cover a considerable part of their tuition. Currently we have 4 assistantships. 2 are research assistantships, and 2 help the program with social media and administrative work, and also with student life support. So these are 4 wonderful opportunities for students, Christina, because they, of course, allow not only the student to reduce the overall cost of the program, but also to acquire professional competencies which they can then also show once they start looking for a job. So it's really a very good opportunity for them. So in general, I would say that this program is extremely competitive in terms of its cost, and in this sense, you know, doing a master's in 1 year is certainly quite demanding, but also rewarding financially.
Well, I know that the assistantship requests are basically submitted along with the application. So you apply for the program, and you also apply for more than even one of the positions, to have one of them during the school year. John, if very quickly you can give us some details on what the admissions committee at the Department of Political Science is looking for in political an application that's typical. Is there a GPA requirement? Is there a GRE requirement? And anything else that might be helpful for students?
Sure, Christina. Yeah, the admissions committee briefly is really, as I said earlier, as I intimated earlier, looking for students who are professionally oriented, who are deeply interested in contemporary Europe, in international affairs, in the transatlantic relationship, who are, in addition, open to new experiences, who are academically motivated, and who are unafraid to take on new challenges and really push themselves to succeed. We ask all students who are applying to submit transcripts, to submit GRE scores, to submit 2 letters of recommendation, and to submit 3 essays and a resume. Of those 3 essays, 1 is effectively a personal statement. The other 2 are short statements, one of which is about their previous language training, if any, and the other is about their thoughts about which policy track of specialization that Caterina mentioned earlier they might be wanting to pursue as a student. A little bit about the GRE, because students often ask me about the GRE. As I said before, the GRE is required, and it does provide some useful information about each student's analytical ability, each student's ability to distill arguments from a pretty significant reading load that they're going to be on top of in the program. Strong GRE scores can sometimes help to balance out applications that are not quite as strong in other dimensions. Honestly, though, the admissions committee tends to pay more attention to transcripts and to GREs and to letters of recommendation, to transcripts and to GPAs and to the letters of recommendation than they do to the GRE. 4 years of proof through undergraduate studies are generally more important and more indicative of a student's potential than scores that are derived from 1 morning or 1 afternoon of activity through the GRE.
All right, we are now at the end of our questions. We've got one last question that is constantly on the mind of potential students, and they want to know what the potential for getting a career after getting their master's, whether in the US or in Europe, what it's like after doing this program. John, if I could ask you again to briefly touch on this, as you obviously keep track of all of us alumni from the program.
Yeah, you bet. One thing that bears mention before talking about where specifically alums wind up is that we take very seriously that transition between finishing up your studies in the program and then immersing yourself in the job market. It's a 3-semester program, and that summer semester, students are obviously looking forward to putting in applications, to doing interviews, to getting their name out there, and to finding the sort of first step on a meaningful postmaster's career. We help them with that. Part of the coursework in the summer is based on really scrutiny of application materials, based on where students are applying for jobs in Europe and the United States. We take very seriously the charge of hooking up students with nodes in that network that I was discussing earlier. So students are busy, as Caterina has discussed, but part of their busyness in the summer, and we facilitate this, is really trying to line up that next step. Students do pretty well when they finish up in the program. As I said before, many students go to the United States and work in and around the federal government, places like the Department of State, the Department of Defense, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Homeland Security, jobs on Capitol Hill, working for government contractors, working for IGOs like the United Nations or the International Monetary Fund. Many students, like you yourself, Christina, have worked in traineeships that are paid in Brussels for the European Parliament or for other EU bodies. Some students have worked with the delegation of the European Union to the United States. Others have worked in multinational corporations, for international NGOs, for think tanks. You can check out the website for some more details about where our alums tend to land. And one other thing that I'd say is that we in addition to those students who do come back to the United States, first, some of them don't wind up in Washington, D.C. They wind up working in cities or in the capitals of various states in the United States. Other students stay and work in Europe, like you yourself, Christina. And still other students go on to do PhD work in political science or an associated field, or to do a degree in something like international law. So we take very seriously the obligation to help students really get a leg up in the job market, and it's nice to watch our students doing pretty well out there, and also it's nice to watch old alums helping new alums to get their feet wet and to get their feet in the door.
Thank you, John, for that last wrap-up question. It looks like our time now is up, but I wanted to just mention that the application deadline for the next academic year, which is the 2015-2016 year, is going to be this coming February 20th, Friday, February 20th, 2015. So if you haven't already started working on your personal statements, letters of recommendation, or scheduling the GRE, we would recommend getting started on that as soon as possible. I also wanted to give the website again, which is where we can get the most information at www.jmu.edu/EU Policy Studies. And we're also, as we mentioned before, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I'd like to go ahead and thank both of our speakers today, both John and Caterina, for their time and for all of their knowledge. And if anybody has any further questions, we'll include their email addresses directly below in the description. So thanks, Caterina.
Thanks. Bye, everybody from Florence.
And I'd say thank you and thanks for tuning in. If you have questions, as Christina said, let us know.